And we are live with another edition of SPFNO. Let's talk about it. We are joined today by Seann Barbour. Seann, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Living the dream, as always.
All right.
It's scary and it's recurring, but it's a dream.
Yeah.
So, you are the author of a number of books, correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Which book did you try to enter in SPFBO and got denied?
All right.
Let's
so
start there.
luckily I have a stack right next to me. So it's called Dead Drops and Dragons. It is in, you can't really see it on the camera, but the tagline is an urban fantasy thriller. It's set in Washington, D.C. It's about a guy who's basically going nowhere in life. Him and his buddies are hanging out one day and they stumble across a trash bag full of cash. And they're like, hey, cool. So they just take it. And they start trying to live the good life. But unfortunately, the money was a dead drop for not just any criminal organization, but like a supernatural criminal organization who are now gunning for them. And at the same time, there's also an organization called the Pact Ritter, who basically they exist to keep the supernatural a secret. And they start coming after him too. So this dude's just having a terrible time.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds like easy fodder for writing a book. I like
Yeah,
it.
that actually sounds pretty cool. And setting it in Washington, D.C., there's any number of agencies that you could use or anything else.
Planning for it to be the first in a series called The Pact. I'm actually, last fall, I started working on the sequel. It's going to be called Borrowed Blood. I put that on high, and then after like 10,000 words, I put it on hiatus for a bit to work on some other stuff. But I'm just now, as of today, actually going back to it to work on the draft and try to finish it up.
Do these have kind of like a Dresden Files feel to them, or?
Kind of. When I set out to write them, I was going for more of a Dresden Files like feel. A bit of that is still a bit present in the first book, I think, especially in the first section. But the issue is that at the time I was reading a lot of like Stephen King and Stephen Graham Jones. And at some point I realized that was affecting like the tone of the writing a lot more than I realized. And it was kind of leaning more towards horror in a lot of respects and a lot of scenes. And I decided to just roll with it. Like the way I justified it to myself was, well, I set out to write an urban fantasy story. And when you think about it, urban fantasy really came out of horror, didn't it? Like with like Interview with the Vampire and stuff like that. Like that's what really created the subgenre. It's not actually a descendant of the fantasy genre. So, yeah. So that's not to say that it's all horror. It's just like kind of leans there in a few times. Like I would not call the book horror, but it definitely has a lot of horror influence.
Might not be a bad idea to call it that way then, as long as there's enough horror influence in it where if somebody who likes horror picks it up, they'll be happy with it, right?
Yeah, I guess. But on the other hand, it's also a book that prominently features like a tooth fairy. So I'm not sure if horror is the right word for it.
Fairies can bleed. That's fine. It's all good. So was this the first time you tried to get into SPFBO?
No, actually, last year I actually did get in because they hadn't done the raffle thing. Because last year they had to close the submissions after, I think, what was it, 40 minutes? Because of how
41.
Yeah. And I was lucky enough to be one of the people who got in that 40 minutes. I did not make it past like the first round of cuts. I did get a review. Like the blog I was assigned to was Weather Wax Report, and she did post a review of it. So like she reviews all of them. So I guess it did make it through the first round of cuts, but it didn't make it into like semifinalist territory. But that book is this one. It's called The Ghosts and the Flames.
Okay.
Yeah. It is kind of a fairy tale riff. It's about like there's 4 kingdoms. that all border this big mountain, the Black Mountain. And on the mountain there lives a dragon named Raxencal who demands tribute, a yearly tribute. And that tribute is in the form of a noble maiden. And so the kingdoms basically every year they trade off who sends the tribute. And the story is about a young woman named Shavuri. She's the princess of the kingdom of Indari, which is the smallest and poorest of the 4 kingdoms. She's the youngest princess, and she learns at the age of 16 that she is going to be her kingdom's next tribute. And the story just kind of follows her for like the 4 years leading up to that. And it's very heavily character focused. And she starts learning witchcraft.
And doesn't blame her, really.
Yeah. Right.
I can just imagine trying to tell a teenage daughter that she's going to be the tribute in 4 years, and just seeing how fun that household is to live in.
Yeah, and it is in a lot of ways a coming of age story. It is about her like growing up, her like kind of discovering how sheltered like her upbringing truly has been, and making a lot of mistakes as she, meddles with incredibly powerful primal forces.
You got to figure, it's like, what are you going to do to me if I do witchcraft? Kill me?
Yeah.
No.
Exactly.
Well, I was going to ask you a question, but it would give away the book, so we won't do that. So when you joined this year, I mean, you obviously knew it was a raffle going into it.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So did you still try to get into it super early, or did you just take your time?
I did try to get into it super early because I was worried that if I didn't, I would just keep putting off until it closed. So
Right.
I just forced myself to do it as soon as I could.
That sounds familiar.
Yes, I didn't get to it. I'm sorry. I'm doing shit that weekend.
Oh, what was it? Just had a child graduating or something?
My wife became a citizen. My son graduated college. Yeah.
You act like you had things to do or something. I
It was
don't
a busy weekend.
know.
Just saves me the agony of sitting here next year going, yeah, I got kicked out in the first round.
What, next year I'm going to be saying that again, hopefully.
You got a purple dragon on your shelf, apparently, Sean.
Oh no, that's a purple octopus.
Okay, tell us about the purple octopus then.
I actually don't have a lot to tell about it because it belongs to my girlfriend.
Okay. Good answer.
Speaking of which, I'm being handed something. Oh,
Just in.
being handed a guinea pig.
I was going to say, that's not a cat. Okay.
No.
That's the first guinea pig on Bald&Balding.
It is, yeah. It
This
kind of
is-
looks like you, Mike.
This is
Much,
Edgar.
much there.
It's Hector.
Edgar. Edgar Allan Pig.
Nice.
Like
All
the
right.
purple octopus, he is also my girlfriend's. She is beaming right now. Oh goodness, hi Edgar. Yeah,
So-
no, you don't know what's going on, huh?
So urban fantasy horror, is that where you pretty much stick to, or have you written romantasy and just haven't told us yet?
You partially ate all of the carrots.
Sorry, I was being informed about Edgar's eating habits. So I've never written a romantasy.
Good.
That's not to say I never will. Honestly, I kind of just write whatever I feel like at the moment. But yeah,
How many books do you have, Sean?
Huh?
How many books do you have?
Oh God. So when I first started self-publishing, and I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, I basically decided, okay, I'm going to write some novellas, and these are going to be urban fantasy novellas about vampire hunters. They were not good. The series is called We Walk the Night. It is still available on Kindle Unlimited and stuff. It was never finished. I made it over halfway through my plans. Please do not read it. It is not good.
That's an interesting tactic right there. That's an interesting sales tactic choice. Please don't read this.
Yeah, it is young writer fresh out of college, just absolutely bumbling.
That's how we start. Doesn't matter if you're just out of
Yeah.
college or just
Yeah.
out of retirement.
Um,
You know, that's the way you start.
At some point during like the publication of those, I did write 2 full-length novels. These 2 I kind of kept. Hold on. Did you just poop on me? You did just poop on me.
Another curse for B&B.
Edgar, he decided he was done with this.
What a naughty pig.
You know, I think Mike and I have been told before by people you don't want to shit on your guests. You know,
Yeah.
but never had someone actually do it.
Mhm.
Glad it was you, not us. Thank you.
You're welcome. So there were two novels that I did write at the time. I was going for more of a comedy focus with those novels. The first one is called Jamie Christmas. It is a holiday novel, as you might guess. It's about a goth elf who gets kicked out of the North Pole.
Okay.
As they would, yeah.
Yeah. The second one is called Mad Scientist Love Story. It was inspired by bad anime. Like those really like bad formulaic like anime shows.
At the risk of
about,
offending
yeah.
anyone, is there good anime?
No.
Okay, so I do have to be more specific then. Those really like bad formulaic shows about like some absolute loser in high school who just has a million girls who want him for reasons nobody can understand. So Mad Scientist Love Story is set in sort of an alternate universe, like alternate history thing going on, where some people just have this power that lets them create inventions that kind of bend the laws of physics. But the trade-off is that they all have unique strands of madness and insanity. So there's like this international university where they all go to, and the story is basically a parody of like those kinds of harem anime where like one of the main characters, like the main female lead, is a girl who think like her specific strand of madness is that she believes that the whole world runs on anime logic. And when she gets assigned to a class that only has one guy on it, she assumes she's in a harem anime and starts like trying to force everyone around her to act the part. So after that, I kind of realized no one was reading We Walk the Night, and I actually didn't like it very much. So I put the series on indefinite hiatus. I've occasionally thought about like going back and rewriting it, but for now it's just kind of sitting there on my my bookstore. I started writing another series, and this one kind of started from a similar place to Mad Scientist Love Story. And it started out as me just kind of messing around, I was still in comedy mode, making fun of like some trend I saw. But I noticed that, and it was a completely mercenary thing, because I noticed that, oh, hey, lit RPG is a hot new genre on Kindle Unlimited. It seems to sell. I'll write something that's just like goofy, dumb lit RPG. So that started a series called Scale Guard, which I'm still working on. The 7th book is going to be my next project once I'm done with Borrowed Blood, which is the Dead Drops and Dragons sequel. The fun with Scale Guard is that they all have absurdly long subtitles. Like the first book is called Scale Guard, transported to another universe full of busty babes, and also I can summon crocodiles.
Okay.
And yeah, my personal favorite is Scale Guard 3, which is Scale Guard 3. I accidentally started a communist revolution in another world.
That can work though, especially if it's kind of. So you chase the hot genre of the moment. Did it work?
It is my most financially speaking. It is my most successful series. And it was at this point, like between those, that I started writing like more more serious stuff, starting with Ghosts in the Flames, which is a story idea I'd had just kicking around in my head for years.
So
What?
when we don't ask good questions, our viewers do.
Yeah. Got the best audience in the business.
Well, if you want to know what scares me, you'll be glad to know that I have written 2 horror novellas. One of them is called The Last Day, and it is about someone who is trapped in a apocalyptic time loop, basically undergoing a zombie apocalypse over and over again and reliving the same day of it. And the other one is called The Maw, which is a much more weirder story about some kids who discover a giant human mouth on the side of a building.
Like when you say giant human mouth, we talking like shark size or
big enough to drive a car through?
oh, okay, garage doors.
Yeah. As for what scares me, I guess I'm afraid of
Being pooped on by small mammals.
I mean, I've conquered that fear. I feel
Good.
like
Yep.
yeah.
On our show, no less. We're that therapeutic.
Yeah, you guys rock. Thank you for that.
You can't script this kind of thing.
Or no one would do it if we did.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm afraid of so many things. I'm having difficulty picking one to start with.
Go alphabetical.
As for my thoughts about Carnage versus Fade to Black, I think that depends entirely on the story, entirely on what tone you're going for. Like I've definitely had Fade to Black moments in my stories, but other times I just revel in the gore. The Last Day is a really good example of that. People, the fun of having someone in an apocalyptic time loop is that you can kill him in as many messy and creative ways as you want over and over again. I think at one point he gets a weed whacker to the face.
Does there come a point when you're writing that where you kind of think this cannot be healthy for my brain?
No.
Okay. That's a fair response.
Yeah.
And the character who gets killed over and over again, did that happen to be same name as a bad boss you once had?
No, unfortunately. Now I wish it was.
Does it resemble a bad boss that you used to have?
No, he's a struggling lawyer with it, trying to run a failing personal injury firm, and unfortunately, I have never worked in law.
Oh. So I will tell you that
Good for you, E.L. Montague.
I've heard it's very cathartic. Not that I would have ever done it before, but it's very cathartic to kill a bad boss.
Honestly, I used to try at least to avoid having anyone even have the same first name as someone I knew or ever knew in real life.
Yeah.
That's of course next to impossible at a certain point because you meet so many people just like from school and work and all that. So at this point, I'm just like, okay, screw it. Just people have whatever names. I try to avoid like names of like close friends or like my name, but at this point, just everyone's got whatever names.
I did have a bald character in my latest book, and I decided to name him Mike. And then I was like, maybe not. And I changed it.
No.
Oh, your sci-fi book?
You should have stuck to your guns.
The
Really should. Yeah.
the guy who ran the morgue. I was going to name him Mike.
As long as it wasn't that person in chapter 18, that would have been a surprise for everybody.
Yeah. We're not going to talk about chapter 18.
It's probably best that we don't.
So
EL's trying to pull us back on track again.
Yeah, he should know by now that's hopeless.
So when you ask plot or character, just to clarify, are you referring like which one I think should drive a story, or
yes, that's exactly what he's asking.
All right. Again, I think it depends on what tone you're going for. Like I feel like some of my books are very character driven. I think that both The Maw and The Ghosts and the Flames are very character driven. In fact, in some ways, The Ghosts and the Flames kind of veers on being a character study. Whereas other books I feel are more plot driven because I just had this weird idea I wanted to do and the characters are just there to fill it. It really varies. I don't really commit to one or the other, to be honest.
All right. So rather than talk about the book that did not get picked up for SPFNO, you have a book coming out in a couple of weeks.
A couple days. It's coming out on the 19th.
Oh, right. Okay. So next Friday.
Yep.
Friday. So tell us about that one.
All right.
So. Latest one. So it's your best one.
Hopefully.
No, that's always the correct answer.
Okay. Yes. So this is The Thief in the Wild. Trying to get a good angle for it where there's not a big glare on it. Yeah. This is a fantasy story. It's very tone-wise, I'd say it's very pulpy in terms of what I was going for. It is about as you might assume from the title, it is about a thief, a professional thief, in a big city. The city is called New Ulm. It is a steampunk city, basically. You know, that comment is very relevant to something that I'll get to in a second.
John the Fourth, a relevant comment.
So it is. So it's a very steampunky city, and it's on a bayou. It is very loosely inspired by New Orleans. And as a result, the book is... I decided it'd be really fun to write a fantasy novel that was written entirely in like a Southern U.S. dialect. So the book is narrated first person. He's like telling this story at a bar, and he has a Southern dialect. So there's a lot of like y'alls and whatnot in this book. And
dragon, y'all.
Yeah. Well, sadly, there are no dragons. I was going for more of a new weird feel, like with the steampunk, and there's some other weird technology that starts getting introduced as the story goes on. And the main conflict is that in this world, there's really one major religion that worships a god called Serenus, who is the father of civilization. He's the civilized god. And Serenus had a brother, Ferengris, who was the god of the wild, seen as like the lord of chaos, the enemy of civilization. And they had a fight, and Serenus struck him down. Hooray. Civilization is saved. But so Jackson, this thief, is contracted to steal a very old mask from this rich lady's mansion. And when he finds it, he realizes that it is not just any mask, it is a mask of Ferengris, and he's stealing it from a shrine of like a heretic who worships the wild god. So he's a bit freaked out by that. And he's very confused when he delivers the mask, and his client turns out to be a Serenite priest, who tells him in no uncertain terms, like, to forget about this. Unfortunately, he can't forget about it for two reasons. The first is that the mask turned out to be a vessel for the god Ferengris, and now the wild god is literally living inside his head, like appearing to him as a hallucination, essentially. And the second is that the lady he stole the mask from, her and her little wild god cult have tracked him down, and they want him to steal the mask back. And he has a very good reason to steal the mask back, because if he does not put Ferengris back in his original vessel, the god is going to slowly like consume his mind, basically, and replace him, essentially.
As they would, yes.
Yes.
Yep.
So
that old chestnut.
Yeah, so he's trying to steal the mask back. Like, he's trying to work with this cult to steal the mask back. He's juggling like a bunch of other stuff, like family issues, and like just living in like the poor part of a city that is just rife with crime and corruption. And also just having his entire worldview and understanding of how the world works just completely collapse around him because of what's happening. And so going back to why I said that the comment about looking like video game box art was very apt, is that the origin of this story, I was daydreaming one day, And specifically what I was daydreaming about was what I would do if I was in charge of rebooting the Thief video games.
Nice.
Yeah.
I don't remember those.
Yeah.
Rings a bell.
Yeah, if you're familiar with Thief, then you might recall that in the Thief games, there are two dueling religious orders that represent like chaos and nature and like order and civilization, and which is very much the basis there. Though the cosmology I ended up coming up with ended up veering off in a wildly different direction than what Thief went. And I came up with the idea of, okay, what if like Gareth gets possessed by the trickster or something? And I decided I like the idea so much, and like there is no timeline in which I'm ever going to be in charge of rebooting the Thief games. So I decided to just file off the serial numbers and do my own thing with it. And that was sort of the genesis of this book. And then I added in like, okay, but what if he had a Southern drawl, and what if he had like a sister and like a niece and a nephew that he was trying to like take care of, and what if the faction that like keeps the balance between the two forces just does not exist, and all this other stuff.
All right. So that's coming out a week. You said the 19th, right?
The 19th, yes.
And are you exclusive to Amazon, or you wide?
No, so I've got it. I'm publishing it through Amazon Kindle, and I'm publishing it through Draft2 Digital. So digital copies at least are going to be available on like Smashwords, Apple Books, Barnes and Noble, that sort of thing. I'm working on paperback copies right now. I've only got them ready for Amazon. I am working on getting them ready through the other storefronts. Hit like a little snag where like the way Amazon does its covers is different from the way Draft2 Digital does its covers. So like the files aren't actually compatible. So I need to fix them up before that can work. So eventually there will be paperbacks available through storefronts other than Amazon, but probably not at launch though.
Yeah, that's cool. It's good to know that the two systems aren't compatible with one another. I've never used D2D, so
yeah,
that's interesting.
It's kind of inconceivable that would be the case.
No, Mike, with enthusiasm. Inconceivable. Come on, Vizzini, you can do it.
Yes, I was told I resemble a certain character.
I didn't realize it until you said that, and then I was like, huh.
You can't unsee it now, can you?
I can't. I really can't. You're just Vizzini now.
And there are worse things.
So Seann, are you do you plot out all your stuff, or do you just kind of sit down and go?
Kind of a mix of the two. Usually I'll sit down with a general idea of what I want to do. I'll start writing, and then after like 3 or 4 chapters, then I'll after like 3 or 4 chapters, I'll have a pretty much better like feel for the characters and the story and the world and stuff, and then I'll write down an outline.
All right.
So how involved is your outline? Is it like 17 pages? Is it 1 page?
It's like 1 page with just like bullet points, basically.
That's really all. That's what it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried doing more, and then my characters just started going, no, I'm not going to do that. So
yeah, half the time I end up having to adjust the outline halfway through. I find that usually I've got a pretty good idea of where a story begins and where a story ends. It's the middle part that starts kind of jumping around.
The wheels fall off you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the dumbest thing one of your characters has done to you as you were writing them?
Oh, God. I'm going to need to think about this one. Man, wish Edgar hadn't pooped on me so he could entertain you guys while I'm thinking.
Just the thought of it is entertaining. Don't worry.
So I'll tell you, Ro has told us before that he had a character who's going to be a main character, and he's like, nope, he dies in this scene.
He wasn't going to be a main. He was a secondary character.
Oh, but
he had served his purpose, but I didn't want him to die. It was not my intent that he die. He had been imprisoned. He had been freed from the prison. His savior, as they were trying to escape, they met the bad guy. Bad guy sat down and monologued with him for a bit, right? Offered him some food. The food was poisoned. He died in a gross puddle on the floor. Right? But it made sense because he had been a prisoner. He was hungry. He would have eaten the food, wouldn't have even thought about it.
So usually my characters don't actually surprise me. What does usually get me is like introducing a character who I think is they don't usually surprise me in that way. The way my characters usually surprise me is that I'll introduce a character who I think is just going to be a really minor, unimportant character. And then they start becoming important just out of nowhere.
Yep.
That actually happened in The Thief in the Wild. There's a character who is introduced basically. I create her entirely to fill out who people present in a certain scene. And I was like, okay, I can just use her for scene set in this location going forward. And then she had the gall to start like aggressively flirting with the protagonist. And I was like, well, he's not interested back. So what am I going to do with this? So it ended up with sort of this running thing where she was, and I think it's very obvious when you read the book where she is very clearly into him. But this story is told like from his perspective. It's first person. And Jackson is just absolutely oblivious throughout the entirety of the novel. And it's very fun.
Oblivious can be fun, but sometimes it's kind of like, dude, what?
Yeah.
What's the matter with you, man?
He does, and that actually did lead me to kind of a revelation about his character later on. And towards the end, it turns out he does actually have a pretty good reason to be oblivious.
Okay.
Not to spoil it though, because it's like something that is revealed like literally during the climax.
He's into trees. I get it. It's fine. Fantasy books, there's always one guy that's into trees, and you can't.
Yeah. I mean, I can't deny that.
It's always somebody. Mike.
Yes, sir.
I think his thief character is an excellent candidate for your tower of stupid questions.
You know what? I agree. Okay. So we are going to start with question number 3.
It could be a 9. You don't know. Mike's just talking. He's just saying numbers. You can't see the dice.
The number is whatever corresponds with the question he wants to ask.
There it is. No, but see, Mike actually has lists. He's a spreadsheet nerd. So
I actually opened up the silly artist questions, and it's all talking about commissions. So let me get the fantasy one, because that applies
how many
here.
screens are you looking at, man?
You don't want to know.
I kind of do. Is it more than 2?
No, just 2.
Okay.
Which of your characters is most likely to inadvertently start a cult?
Nice.
Are we limiting it to The Thief in the Wild or all my characters in all the books?
All of your characters.
Okay. Almost certainly Shivari from The Ghost in the Flames, the princess who becomes a witch.
Well, yeah. Again, what are they going to do to her?
Yeah.
Start sacrificing all the noble men for a while. Even this playing field a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that was too quick. We're going to do another one.
Okay.
I rolled 20 side die and I get a 4. What is the most bizarre review that you've ever received for one of your works?
Ooh. Oh, God. And if you can't think of it, I'm going to go look it up.
So this, I can think of 2 reviews. I'm just trying to figure out which one is more bizarre.
You can tell us both.
Okay. So luckily they're both for the Scale Guard series, but for different books. The first was a very strange review for the second book, where his main complaint was that because it is a lit RPG series and the characters do have like levels and such, his main complaint was that a character the main character managed to beat a villain who was significantly higher level than him. And he described it as well, I guess moral outrage overrides levels now. And like, first of all, you need dramatic tension. It's no fun if you like the hero loses because the bad guy's number is bigger than his. And second of all, I actually like the fight he's talking about. I actually had like there's like a whole convoluted explanation in the book itself about how the hero is able to do this. Like, it is heavily stacked in his favor. And he literally says in the book, like, again, lit RPG, so you're using like gaming terminology. He literally says, well, I know how to cheese a boss to death, so that's what I'm going to do. The other one for another Scale Guard book, I think this was book 5. It was someone who had left like positive reviews for previous volumes. And suddenly he left a 2-star review, angrily stating that like he will not truck with blasphemy, basically. Because so one of the major characters in Scale Guard is the Egyptian god Sobek. Sort of the concept behind it is that there's this other world where all the gods who are no longer like actively worshipped in our world have gone over to get new followers. And they like basically pull souls from our world to be their champions to spread like belief in them in this world. So Sobek is like the main character's sponsor. And there's a scene in literally I think the first or second chapter of Scale Guard 5 where Sobek makes a comment about like how he can't get anything done back on Earth because of that damn carpenter. And that comment just somehow all the other stuff that happens in the series, all the other pagan gods who show up, all the sex and violence, all the communist revolutionaries, none of that offended this guy, but that one offhand comment was enough for him to leave a 2-star review about how he will not tolerate blasphemy.
You have a book, and I think it's one that you mentioned, that has 77 reviews
on Amazon or Goodreads.
On Amazon, which is
probably Scale Guard 1.
Transported to Another World. That one.
Yep, that's the first Scale Guard book.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, most of them are really positive.
Yeah.
One guy said the only thing that bothered him about the book, other than the fact that it was a little shorter than he would have liked it, was the fact that the main character had a cool power that he seemed to forget about later in the book, and that he could summon alligators.
I took that criticism to heart and ended up in the second book introducing sort of a post hoc explanation of why he didn't do that. But also he just, with how Gideon is, I think that he did legitimately forget that he could summon alligators.
How you could forget that? I mean,
I don't know.
And why alligators? I mean, what happens if he's
not alligators, crocodiles?
And
he can summon
snappy things.
Yeah, he can summon crocodiles because he's sponsored by the Egyptian god Sobek, who is a crocodile-headed deity.
All right. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. And also because I thought the title, like concluding with "and also I could summon crocodiles," was really funny. So that's why he can summon crocodiles.
Yeah, that's you never see that in the Super Friends, right? If Xander and Jaina could have summoned crocodiles, it would have been a whole different show. Form of a crocodile. Yeah, there we go, Jan. Right on.
Yeah.
I did have one of my characters. He could summon a battle ostrich.
I would love to be able to summon a battle ostrich. That's some Final Fantasy shit.
Does your battle ostrich come with armor?
He has an old like German World War II helmet with a spike on top.
World War One, yeah.
Or whatever, yeah. Yeah. The artist did that. I'm like, this is supposed to be taking place in like 300 BC. Can you make the helmet look older than that? And so he just made it look damaged. And I'm like, you know what? Okay, fine.
It's a summoned ostrich, man. It's from wherever it came from. It gets what it gets.
He summoned the battle ostrich from the future.
Yes, the Germans were going to be riding in war on them. They couldn't get gas for their tanks, but the ostriches, they could eat as they go.
I tell you what, the Wehrmacht's very vaunted battle ostrich battalion was something to behold. Till food started getting scarce, and then, well, you know.
Oh.
So what's next for you, Seann? You got the release of this book. How have you set up the release? What do you got planned for release day?
Honestly, not much. I have been so exhausted recently.
That is the indie author answer right there.
Yeah. I'm basically just going to post about it a lot on social media. That's it.
And you're on all the socials.
Yes. Not all of them. Most of them. I do not have a TikTok, which might be my problem because apparently everyone sells books on TikTok now.
Romance books, yes.
Yeah, right. There you go.
But on the plus side, if you write a romance book, then you just have to do find and replace Caleb with, Lance, and then find and replace Virginia Beach with, Richmond, and voila, you have a new book.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're doing you're kind of really shitting on romance authors there, Mike.
Kind of, yeah.
I
think there's probably a little more effort than that.
Oh,
I'm not a fan of the genre. The people
And
still have to write it.
They have to change the female lead too. You're right.
If I remember right, it is the most lucrative genre to write in. Yeah. So this does count. So I think this does count as punching up.
I mean, a lot of them are what 40 to 60,000 words, right? Mm-hmm. By the time you're getting into your book, they're wrapping theirs up. And
honestly, most of my books are short. Like all the Scale Guard books are about 40 to 50,000 words, to be honest. Like my longest, The Ghost in the Flames is my longest book, and it's like only 97,000 words.
Well, that's a fair size book. You know, the short book though. One of the other people who commented and left a review on that book mentioned that the length of the book really kind of works for the audience that's reading it, because the people who are reading that book often are people who have they've read all the fantasy stuff, right? They know how it goes. Yeah. So by having a short book where you don't dive into the culture and the religions and blah, 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 right? You just kind of cut to the chase of the story. They can fill in the rest themselves because they've read enough of the other stuff. They kind of will just fill that in naturally.
Yeah.
And that works for everybody, right? Because I mean, there's sometimes you just want to sit down and read something that doesn't have all that stuff in it.
And I think that the reason that specifically worked out in Scale Guard's favor is because Scale Guard is a lit RPG, which is basically just take fantasy RPGs and make a book out of them, the genre. So nobody reading lit RPG is not familiar with like what a standard fantasy setting is.
Right.
So, yeah. Whereas I feel like in more traditional fantasy, you're going to have like first time fantasy readers coming in, and they're going to be lost if you don't have at least some explanation.
Yeah, I don't know a lot of people who write for first time fantasy readers, because there's a lot of hand holding that needs to go on there.
Yeah.
Right. So that's just a little too much, but John 4, man. We haven't kicked anybody out yet, John, but you're on the list. You're suspect.
E.L. Montague every time.
We don't kick him out though.
Oh, that's right.
Nothing we're doing. That's
our story. That's right. We never kick him out.
That's the glitch in the matrix.
Yeah. So I literally just realized that I have not like looked at the comments at all, except for the ones that have popped up on the screen. Like I did not realize that the comments were even there until just now.
You know what? Sometimes that's just as well. It's kind of funny because we've got a fair few people watching tonight. Thank you all. But the comments are mostly John and EL.
Yeah, I don't know where our favorite Canadian is tonight.
Right. Well, because we started late, maybe he had to,
Curling
go on his
practice,
Zamboni or something.
probably curling practice.
Trinity was here for a minute at the beginning.
Oh, was she? I missed it.
Yeah, the very first comment was Trinity.
No.
So you've got no big plans for your launch, which is a shame. But not, we all do that. That's cool.
Yeah. I had more time and energy.
So we were talking before we started that like Comic-Cons and things like that, and you haven't started doing that. Do you think you're going to get to that in 2025?
Possibly. Depends on my budget. I think I am feeling a bit optimistic about it, though. Yeah. I think that honestly, at this point, I think that the biggest barrier is just like a mental one. Like I've never sold at a comic convention. So just, forcing myself to accept that I can do it is probably going to be the biggest hurdle.
Yeah. I mean, you absolutely can,
Yeah.
and I think that the right mental state to go into it with is you get something out of it just meeting all the other people who are there, right? I mean, you will meet other authors and vendors, and just like in writing, if you go up to somebody who has a really nice display and start asking about things, they will be more than happy to tell you what they've done to do it. I saw a guy once, he had a big wall of art in the back.
Oh, wow.
And so I was asking him, it's like, where did you get these things that you're hanging this all up with? And he's like, oh yeah, here, just go on Amazon and there you go. And so, I bought it right there. It's like, okay, cool. Thank you very much. Yeah.
So Sean, I will give you one warning when you go to Comic-Cons. Beware the other authors who say, hey, we should start a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Avoid them. Trust me.
Watch out for those bastards, man. They are just lurking. There are some creepers.
For some reason that feels like far more legitimate advice than I usually get. I'm gonna take that to heart.
Yeah, you'll be well served if you take that advice. All right, Mike, do you have anything else?
I mean, we have lots of.
Let's give Mike a couple minutes for shameless self-promotion,
if you insist.
All right.
1 week after everyone goes out and buys Sean's book, which we know we're all going to do,
Which you better.
Then save your pennies, because my book comes out the 26th, 1 week after Sean's. So right as we finish reading Sean's, you can just dive right into the Haley Traveler, where chapter 18 is very cringy. And that's all I'm going to do to try to sell it.
All right.
Oh, thank you, John. Now that I'm actually looking at the comments, I can respond to them. Thank you, John.
And this Friday, July 12th, my birthday, this is free for 3 days on Amazon, July 12th, 13th, and 14th. So you can save all of your pennies for Sean and Mike and just pick up my book for free. And as a birthday present, you can leave me a review.
There you go.
Because I've already had my present. Have you seen my present, Mike?
No, Ro. What could your present possibly be?
Oh, look at that.
Oh, wow.
My wife loves me.
And I do want to remind everyone, if you're not liking and subscribing the channel, if we get to 500 subscribers by the end of the year, I will get this tattoo on the back of my head. Tell your friends. And just keep that in mind. 500 by the end of the year. We're 259. So there's some work to do.
John 4, you said amazing cover. Good job to your Polish artist. You talking about Mike's cover?
Yep, it's not
because
a Polish.
If you are, Mike's cover was actually, that was done by Matt, right?
Yeah, that's Matt Slay. Actually, right here is the actual original artwork that my cover is.
Oh, wow.
Matt Slay is in Lynchburg? Yes.
Lynchburg, yep.
I've been to his place. I should know this. And I was invited.
Okay, you were stalking him. That's good.
So, yeah, the cover by Matt Slay, fantastic. He's actually working on the next cover in this series. And let's just say that he took my idea and went like 6 times further than I did with it. And I was like, now I'm going to have to rewrite my story to, to accommodate this picture,
That's
which
right. He does great work.
is awesome. But,
All right, Sean, one more time. Hold up your book that comes out a week from Friday.
Yeah.
Is Thief in the Wild.
Yep.
The 19th of July. Mark that down, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And
you can't see it very well because my webcam is absolutely terrible, but there is a little cat with 3 eyes right there.
okay.
Yeah.
And for anybody who joined us late, you might want to rewind the show and watch when Sean's little hamster thing, guinea pig,
Yeah.
chat on him live. So that was something that's never happened before, and we're glad that we can check that off our bingo card. So
I'm glad to be of service.
you will be remembered always. You'll be on our pantheon of guests, or at least your critter will. Keep forgetting what it's called. Guinea pig. Sorry.
look at that. Tim has been here the whole time, and he's just not been commenting.
Oh.
Probably waiting to see if I called someone else my favorite Canadian.
All right. Sean, thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you to your girlfriend for handing you the guinea pig. And
Babe, they said thank you for handing me the guinea pig. Oh, hold on.
No, you're famous.
He just, I'm not sure if my microphone picked it up, but he just fussed her and she went, "No, you're famous."
That's right. Well, famous is yeah.
Edgar Allan Pig.
Here's Edgar.
That's right, Edgar Allan Pig. Well done, little man. All right, Mike, get us out of here.
Okay, everyone, time to wave awkwardly while we wait for the show to end. I've
Thanks,
hit end